Okay, welcome back, everybody. If you're just joining us, this is the session on OMS Wings. So welcome to the DUI virtual trade show, day 2. Sorry about that little typo on the intermission screen. I guess it said the 10th, when today is actually the 11th. So welcome. Again, if you have questions throughout today or any of these sessions, please comment in the message window. Message to me, and I will make sure Pete answers those questions today. If you would like to speak to any of our DUI account managers that are online, please also send me a message. I will arrange to send you guys to your own virtual breakout room so you guys can discuss dive gear, dry suits, whatever your needs may be around diving. So with that, just in case people are just showing up for the first time, I'd like to introduce Pete Nawrocky, and he is going to give our presentation on how to choose a wing. And so just give a brief, a little thing about yourself again, just in case someone's just joining us. So thanks, Pete.
My name's Pete. I dive, and it's a lot of fun. Is that brief enough?
Okay, well,
for those of you,
I guess that's my intro too.
Yeah. So that is real simple. I am an instructor since '79. I enjoy diving with any of you folks. I love sharing the passion of diving, and I'm really into the technology of diving, watching it grow and change. So that's all what got me excited about working with Thomas Diedericks at OMS and DUI is it's being progressive. And that's what we want to do. So this section, the first section, we talked about picking and choosing your harness, because that's going to fit your body. And once you pick the harness, you know where you're going to go, what your decisions are going to be. You're going to move forward there. We'll do a short little recap on that as we get into a little bit of a PowerPoint. But let's talk about the wings. When OMS first started putting out wings, and people were used to seeing this. This is the OMS Deep Ocean Wing. It came in a couple of iterations, right up to 94 pounds of weight. Why 94 pounds of weight? Because at one point, steel 120s were used for some of the deeper diving off the coast of the United States. As you can tell from my voice, I'm not a local boy. I'm from New York, and that's where OMS originally was stationed. And the whole idea was try to keep the wing as tight as possible when it's deflated. And you have all the bungees on the outside. Now, for those of you who remember this wing, it would show up in a bag, and then there'd be another baggie on the inside that hold the bungees in it. You had the privilege of trying to put this whole thing together, which usually included a lot of cursing and a case of beer. So, but when we were shipping these wings originally, and I always like to use the term air cell, we made sure that they were actually installed on the air cell itself, so you didn't have to fight with it. And we shipped it with extra ones, and they were made out of silicone. Now, this concept worked for years, and this type of wing is actually called a horseshoe. There's no connecting air cell across the bottom. And we made them where they actually have a dual bladder. That was called the Trest or the Trieste, well, depending on who you want to talk to. That was a double bladder BC. And it came up to also 94 pounds of lift, so you did have a backup at that point. But, one thing I always love about the sport and technical community, back then it was split on all the nicknames that came up for gear. And for those of you who don't remember this, the original nickname for this wing was the OMS bondage wing. And that's what we'll end with that. But the whole idea on changing product, it's not change for the sake of change. Things start to grow, things start to change, and how people are starting to look at equipment and what it is that they're doing with their gear. How do we make it work? How do we make this happen? Well, when you're working with an air cell, you have to decide what's appropriate for you and go along with the harness that's going to work for you. And then you need to make sure all the key features and components will actually do the job for you. It's all about you, what you want to do. You can't just pick one wing. I'll never forget this story. I was cave diving with a friend of mine, and he was working with a class, and this one young lady was told, yeah, you need to wear this wing, 80 pounds of lift. And I think if she weighed 120 pounds soaking wet, that was amazing. So she's swimming, and those of you who cave dive in Florida know it's a struggle to move against the current. She's struggling. She's going through air like there's no tomorrow, just so much drag. So we took that 80-pound lift wing away from her and put a 50-pound lift wing, which was more than enough for her to maintain her lift in the cave, more than enough to float her up on the surface. Now we had the opposite problem. We had to slow her down. She couldn't be in the lead because she would just take off because she was almost trimmer in the water. So it's part of your decision. It comes down to what you're doing and what fits your body shape and what is your personal configuration. So with that, you go with a harness style. Now, of course, we hope that you're going to buy an OMS harness, but we're not kind of locked in that way. The grommets are 10 inches on center, so you can use your pre-existing system to work with any of the wings that happen to catch your eye. You do have trim pockets on the IQ Light harnesses. That'll work. We talked about that before. So we moved away from, we still do have them, by the way, the ones that go on the cam straps itself, but we've moved away from that as a primary feature on the unit. So we have different sizes. This is a recap for those of you who are new here on the different sizes on the IQ Light. It's really primarily designed for the traveling diver. You could slide a stainless steel or aluminum backplate into the pad so you could stiffen it up to work with heavy cylinders with an STA or working with a set of doubles. The Comfort Harness 3, which we discussed, also is one size adjustability, pretty much size fits most. Also available stainless steel or aluminum backplate. And then the Smart Stream with his one-piece webbing with easy adjustment for your body shape. Single tank adapters. A lot of people like single tank adapters. No problem with that. We're going to talk about how we actually got away from single tank adapters in the OMS line, particularly for the traveling diver. The function of the single tank adapter was to keep the cylinder from rocking back and forth, particularly when you were wearing a hard plate. It's designed for the hard plate. The drawback on these is it brings the cylinder about 1.5 inches further away from your back, so it changes your center of gravity. But if you're really wearing a heavy cylinder, it might be something that you want to work with at this point. We do make it in a lightweight version, so that if you're trying to come up with some sort of single tank adapter for travel and your wing and your harness, particularly a plate, you have a problem where it's shifting, it's rolling back and forth, this will stabilize the cylinder. Now, there are plastic tubes that run through it, and everybody's always like, what are the tubes for? Well, the tubes are just so it runs through it. They're open on each end, but I was chit-chatting with Jack about this. I've actually had people glue the bottoms of the tube shut, fill them up with lead shot, and then glue them up on the top so they get a little extra trim weight on the back. Our back plates, stainless steel or aluminum. And the stainless steel plate, by the way, and this is the pattern that OMS has had for about 20 years, nice and shiny. You can see everything in this thing. But the big thing about these plates, the one thing I've always loved about it, the attention to detail that Thomas has with the line. If you slide your finger through here, all the burrs are removed. It's actually nice and smooth on any of the sections. This is my plate. It's about 6 years old, and still there's no burring problems on this. So I'm not cutting my fingers, and I'm not going to fake it on you. So this works well. The other difference too on the OMS plate, the concave is actually deeper, so that when you're putting the bolt kit through, it's not going to hit your back. Now, here's one of the fallacies. I see people deal with this all the time. Oh, the bolt's sticking out. It's going to go right through the back of my dry suit. Well, the easiest way to check that, to make sure it's not going to happen, is after you put the bolts through the back, you put a straight edge on it. If the straight edge doesn't touch it, you don't have to worry about that bolt running into the back of your dry suit, top and bottom. So that'll solve that whole problem for you. That's how you free check it. Boom, bite it on the cat. So we don't have to worry about that digging into your back. And then we do have the aluminum plate, which you can get in either black, or black. So that's also coated. It's also deburred. It's a lightweight plate. The pattern is exactly the same. You'll notice that there are 3 holes on the top. There's a slot on the bottom. The 3 holes are for, depending on your body shape and how you want to set your trim, you can move the plate up and down on your doubles or up and down on your STA in order to get your body to trim out. It was just easier to put a slot on the bottom in the middle than there was to put 3 corresponding holes. So that's going to hold that plate and hold the position. You'll also notice on the plate, there were 2 slots on the bottom are horizontal slots. One is for the 1-inch crotch strap. The other one is for the 2-inch crotch strap. So you'll have your choice. You're not locked in to one thing in order to work with it. All right. Single tank configuration. Now, diving has changed. At one point, and I was talking to some folks at training agencies, they're like, and this is back in the 90s, you know, tech saved diving. Really? Yeah, we're doing so many more certifications. And then you're taking a look and it's like, wow, we're selling a lot of wings for doubles and people are going that way. Well, things have changed. There's a tech community out there. I'm not going to tell you there isn't, okay? But it's changed where there's so many more people involved in diving that do a lot of travel, and they're looking for those, that simple wing in order to pack well, in order to keep them safe in the water, keep them proper trim in the water, float them up on the surface. Putting it simply, for most manufacturers, about 75% of the wings that they sell are for single tank configurations, whether it's 20, 27, or 32 pounds of lift, because the market has completely changed at that point. And a lot of these divers that are doing the traveling, if they decide to go into something else, if you have a modular system, you don't rebuy everything. You just have to get a different wing if you need more lift. So the Performance Mono Air Cell. This comes in 27 to 32 pounds. We only have it in 9 colors. Of course, the most popular selling color is black. Go figure. So there you go with that, okay? Inflator on the left side, that's standard. There's always a power inflator included. And we'll talk, I'm gonna actually open one up where you can see what's on the inside and what's the difference. But the dump valve is always on the left side because you inflate with your left hand, deflate with your left hand. So if you're in trim, you can deflate by using the dump valve in the back. So why don't we sort of like play with one of these? Let's see what's on the inside, because everybody always wants to see what's on the inside. I can't wait to open up a regulator for everybody. So this is the mono wing, all right? And this particular, this is now called a vintage. We don't use the word old, vintage. I am vintage. So it's a zipper located on the back. And this is a few things that I'm really thrilled with what they did at OMS. On the inside, this is a polyurethane coating. Now, every manufacturer uses a coating on the inside. It's usually polyurethane. But normally what's done is they spray it on. So it's not consistent. We actually have the entire roll sent out, and this is laminated on. So it's very consistent. It's one of the reasons why the OMS wings over time actually hold their colors longer. Now, if you leave it in the sun with salt water on it and you're in the equator or Southern California, eventually it will turn pink. So keep your unit in the shade. Don't dry it in the sun. It'll last a little bit longer. The other change too, this is a big change in feature. When these fittings for the dump valve and also for the fitting on the inflation valve, the thread sizing the same, but originally it was a multi-piece unit. It took 6 pieces to put it together. And if you had to change in a bag or you wanted to take it apart to clean it, and those of you who are public safety divers and diving in that gnarly stuff, you should also wash out the inside of your BC, put the water in through the inflator hose, then you got to get it all out. The easiest way to get it out, these actually unscrew. You'll notice all the tools I needed in order to do that. This fitting here is ultrasonically welded into the inner bag. So you don't need any special tools to lock it off. It's the same fitting, top and bottom, and it's actually keyed so you make sure to put the hose in the same place. So now you can take it apart, clean it, make sure you clean this assembly. I have teams locally that are coming up to me buying more of these because they just don't wash their gear out. So as to put it back together, and we'll see if we can pull this off on Zoom without looking too spastic. Oh, look at that on the first shot. I put it back together. Now, here's one thing. I don't care what BC you own from anybody. This is a pretty standard fitting. But once you break the seal, you should inflate the air cell and leave it inflated overnight. It should hold air overnight. If not, make sure that this is not held up that it's open part way. Make sure all the fittings are solid, and then put it in the water to clean it out.
Yeah, that's a good test, Pete, because I know a lot of people will call up and they lose the O-ring for the inflator hose, or actually on the OPV valve, the little rubber piece in there that helps stop can also get knocked out. So I have seen that where people lose those parts because they do this in the dark at night.
Yeah, well, that's why we have iPhones with built-in flashlights. So, and then you have the inner bag, and we use a mil thickness that's usually 2 to 4 times thicker. 2 to 4. If it's 10 mil, we're up at 12 to 14 mil in order to make this last a little bit longer. But with minimal care, you can have your air cell last 10 years. So what does it take? First of all, when you wash the air cell, you put water in through here. If you want, you can actually spend $20 and buy a fitting that fits on here. But I just shoved the hose on the end, push down. Remember to push down, otherwise it blows back in your face. I'll fill it up part way, fill up the rest of the way with air, shake and bake, and I'll dump some of the air out of the oral inflator hose and some of the water-air combination out of the dump valve on the bottom. And then when you store it partially inflated. It doesn't have to be blown up all the way. You just want to make sure that the bag on the inside isn't laying flat. It's partially inflated. That will extend wear. Drying it, keep it in the garage. You can put it in the garage wet. That's not a problem. But don't dry it out by leaving it on the back of the driveway in 100-degree heat and trying to figure out, well, why is one side red and the other side's pink? All right. And here's another thing, too, for those folks of you who are instructors, and now your gear is starting to fade and it's turning something like a brownish color. Okay, the problem there is chlorine is a highly corrosive salt. It will actually leach the color right out of the nylon. Doesn't matter who makes it. We all have the exact same problem. So how do you prevent that? Before you go into the pool, wet your gear down. It actually fills in all the little gaps in between the threads. So you're in the pool, it's there, but you'll have less of it getting into the wing itself. And when you come out and you wash it, you do wash it, right? It'll actually clear up and stay clean for you at that point. Now, we say we're going to start making changes, and we are. And this comes down to also on the product, and that's a mono wing, 27 or 32 pounds of lift. And with that, we know we have our color sizes. It's 1,000 denier nylon outer bag. It's the urethane coating helps keep it a little more stable over time, so it'll last a little bit longer. And I've met people, I've gone on the boat, and it's like, well, how long have you had that wing? Oh, I've had it for 15 years. I'm like, well, how about ponying up and getting a new one at least, because it's turning white. We came up with the Deep Ocean 2.0. Now, when we make changes in the line, we look at a lot of different things. We don't make changes because, it's time. We got to come out with something new just for the fun of it. It's like, it doesn't work that way. It has to make sense. It has to make sense to the diver, and it has to make sense industry-wide at this point. Remember, we talked about the Bungees on the outside, and that was a horseshoe-style wing, which means it had that opening on the bottom. Well, this particular wing, because we are so good at naming product, we call it the Deep Ocean 2.0. Thomas, take note. We need more names. So anyway, with this particular type wing, it is a donut. Donut means the air travels all the way around. What's superior about this style wing is the fact that you can now, when you're in that horizontal position and you have to start dumping air as you're ascending, with a horseshoe style wing, you actually have to go vertical to get the air up, possibly on one side of the wing where too much is gathered, to get the wing out, get the air out of the wing. With this one, it's simply by using the dump valve on the left-hand side. Now, the question's always coming up, why do you have 2 dump valves on here? Okay, more isn't always necessarily better. But in some parts of the world, on public safety teams, they are required to have a completely redundant inflation system for their BC. They're not talking oral and a power inflator. They actually have a system not available in the United States, don't even ask, that they'll actually unscrew this and screw in a fitting that matches up, that has a small 6 cubic foot bottle that in emergency, they can actually inflate the wing. So for us, we had to build them with everything because these are all CE approved, so they're sold worldwide. So it had to be consistent all the way around. And as you can see, we only have 9 different colors. All right. So, and I sold a lot of red to the fire departments. Now, we can also open up the bag, same thing, where we have the features on the inside with that extra coating on the inside, the heavier in a bag. They all lock down the exact same way. But when we had the bungees on the outside, it was a 60-pound wing or a 94-pound wing. What this wing actually does, the bungees are located on the inside. You can see the picture on the screen. We actually have it here. Jack, do I have to get out of that screen in order to look at it? Or are we good? The host has stopped my sharing. Did you stop my sharing, Jack?
Yep. I switched it for you.
Okay, gee, thanks. Now I just gotta get this out of my face. There we go, so I can see what I'm doing. So the bungees are actually located on the inside. This wing is dual purpose wing. When we ship them to you, you'll actually see this fold along the side. That means the bungees are pulled in tight all the way. This is 48-pound lift wing the way you see it. By opening it up and taking, there's knots on the top and bottom, just take off one or the other and just stretch the bungees out all the way. You don't have to remove them, just stretch them out all the way, and now you have a 60-pound lift. So this is what we call a hybrid wing. And this is very important for, particularly for dive shop owners. You only have to carry one wing, just pick the color that you want to have in the store, and now your customer has what they need. Now, the other thing that I was working on, we started talking about, and I didn't get into it, but STAs. Well, this is what we've done on the current product. We've actually had people saying, you know, I'm diving with this and I don't want to use an STA. I'm traveling. I don't want to carry that extra 4 or 5 pounds of extra weight in there. We actually have stabilizing bars on the wing, on all our wings. It comes with these stabilizing bars. An STA, the single tank adapter, actually these act as roll bars and the cylinder fits in between. So you just have to run the cam bands all the way around. Now, we do listen to you, and some people were complaining that the grommets, well, I'm not wearing a set of doubles, and the grommets keep scratching my tank. And I know there some of you are laughing and rolling your eyes right now, but you know, I get it. You spent a few $100s on a cylinder. You don't need OMS scratching up your cylinder. We actually have a Velcro piece that you can remove all the way. And when wearing a single cylinder, this just stays on top, and that'll keep from scratching your tank. So we make little improvements in terms of stuff that makes sense. It's not fluff, it's what's going to work for you. Now, the original
Quick question. What are the bungee attachments made of inside the wing? Plastic or fabric?
It's not nylon.
So it's a fabric connection?
Yes, nylon fabric. So you don't have anything stiff pushing on the wing at that point. Now, with the original design on the dump valve, on the inflator valve, on the original design, it was put right here on your shoulder. So there was nothing going on top. The whole reasoning behind this, wearing a set of doubles, you'd have something that wouldn't lock it in place, wouldn't create a problem. But it made it difficult to work the wing, the dump, for those of you who like to hold the inflator hose up over your head. So the change that was made was the dump valve is now located, the inflator hose is now located on the top of the wing, so it does make it easier to dump. And for those of you that want to use something like an Air 2, an integrated system, it will fit on here. The hose diameters are the same. But in order for that to work, you need an extra dump valve, because the whole idea, your buddy comes up, and trust me, if you've ever been out of air, nobody does this. I am out of air and I wish the buddy breathe. They just take what's ever in your mouth and that's what they're going to use. So the whole idea is to take the secondary system and now you're breathing out of it. But as you're ascending to the surface, chances are you're going to be in a vertical position. Well, how do you get the air out of the wing if the dump valve located down by your left hip? You don't want to be taking this out of your mouth. So there is an extra, you can see this, that Scuba Pro invented it. So they put an extra dump valve on top. So we have an extra dump valve on here, and it's got a nice long string. Why does it have a nice long string? Because when we originally sold them, it had a short string and everybody wanted a long string. So we just made it easy. Here's your long string. Get yourself a pair of scissors and cut it to the size that you want. Simple as that. Now we still make a wing in this configuration. This particular wing is designed for the public safety diver. It is designed for contaminated water. It'll flush out and clean really easy. And you're like, well, why don't you make it with the Bungees? Well, one of our biggest vendors that buy this particular wing happens to be the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. And I asked them, I said, you know, you guys are always swimming around structure, you're working around, you know, everybody, you got to be careful, you don't want to get entangled, yada, yada, whole nine yards. Why do you guys like these Bungees on the outside? And I got the most eloquent answer I've ever gotten from a diver ever. Have you ever carried a crowbar for 8 hours straight underwater? They shove their tools down inside the Bungees. And when they need them, they just simply pull them out and their buddy puts it back in position. So they're doing a lot of chlorine diving. They prefer to use this particular cylinder, that particular air wing, and they're happy with it being a horseshoe style. So, and you know, when we're looking at wings, can I share again, Jack, or are you just going to keep kicking me off? Yeah, okay. I'm glad you're muted. Thank you very much.
I just saw that you were in the mode of looking how to unshare. So I
well, I know how to use the buttons. I'm really pretty good at that. Okay. So we consider that a hybrid wing. So it'll work with singles and doubles. So, and it's become very popular with the public safety teams that I work with. So at the Bungees, the way they're shipped, maximum tightness, 48 pounds of lift. You release the Bungees, minimum tightness or no tightness, it's 60 pounds of lift. Once again, donut design, 2 dump valves. Double cylinder air cells. So the difference on this, I mean, you can have a cylinder specific, an air cell specifically designed for doubles, and it's only 60 pounds of lift. And you say, well, the deep ocean wing's a hybrid. What's the difference? I'll get into that in a moment. Some of the training agencies also require a redundant air cell built in. We still do have some of the Trest wings that has, and we'll show you in a little bit, that has the dual bladders on the inside, and the Tesseract wing, we also has a dual bladder. The Tesseract wing, because Jack's going to ask where did that name came from, because back about 20 years ago, they were going to come out with the Tesseract rebreather, and it didn't happen. But they named the wing already and put it in production, so we still have a few of those left for those people. And it's always a double bladder on the inside, not just 2 inflator, okay? The Deep Ocean 2.0 can work with double cylinders, and what you need is adequate lift to keep the diver on the surface in heavy seas. It's not so much, hey, I can float easily in the pool. Well, that's great, but you know, your chin's just above the surface of the water. But if you wind up in a situation, a heavy sea, divers that are diving in areas like the North Sea or diving off of Jersey or New York or Rhode Island, where the seas can really kick up, it can kick up anywhere, and you're wearing heavy cylinders, you got your stage bottles on, yeah, you're trimming the water, but you need to keep your head above the surface of the water so you can signal for help, talk, whatever. If you use up all your gas, you have some way of breathing. So we have double cylinder air cells, and some are specifically designed for double cylinders, and I'll go through that in a moment on why. The performance double is a donut. We sell these. It has only 9 colors, special orders only, except black and red. We tend to only store black and red, and of that, black happens to be the most common. 45 and 60 pounds of lift, because some individuals don't need that amount of lift, and the lift equates to drag when it's deflated. There are no Bungees built into this particular style wing. We also have the ocean wing, and we call these vintage because these wings really aren't in production. They're all first quality, but we are moving away from these mainly because the sale is just, people aren't buying them. It's not what they want. The inflator hose is located at the center. They always include a dump valve. Dump valve is on the lower left-hand side. Also, 45 or 60 pound lift. By the way, that is a common style that was used in cave diving for years. And it was designed for doubles. And believe it or not, for those of you who are old enough to remember CTEC back in the 70s actually made what was called the back inflation unit, the BIU. It was basically this pattern, except it was designed for a single cylinder. The Trestling is also, it's got 2 dump valves, but the secondary is located on your back. Primary is obviously on the left-hand side toward the front. It has the redundant in the bladder. It has the bungees that are installed in it. You can get it in 60 and 94 pounds of lift. Oddly enough, it's almost impossible. If you drop 2 of them on the floor and one right next to the other, you actually have to read the label to see which one's the 60 and which is the 94. And then the Tesseract. This is a donut wing. And I actually use this on my back inflation rebreather because the hoses are located on the shoulders. So my breathing loop came over clean. I didn't have it interfering with the hoses on the BC at this point. So it worked well. A little slight drawback on the fact it did trap a little air up on the top, but you can work your way through it just by ducking the nut, getting a little bit lower, and all the air would run toward the back. And it only came in 60 pounds of lift. And this came in black, black, and black. So you didn't have a lot of choices on that. So let me get out of this because I want to get into those particular wings. Oh, you're making me stop share now, Jack? So.
Something today, Pete.
Yeah, well, I get that. This is the performance double wing. And this particular one, and it's a big wing. This particular one here is designed for 20. This is 60 pounds of lift. So as you can see, this is a rather large wing. It doesn't have any adjustments. You pretty much pick your own. That's the size you pick, and you move your plate up and down in order for you to be diving with a balanced rig. The dump valve's in the middle. So the question, so what, it's big, but what makes it into doubles? Well, what we're looking at, and it'll probably be easier on an ocean wing. On the ocean wing and on the performance wing, what really makes this into a double wing is the distance from the edge of the bladder to the opposite edge of the bladder. The whole idea is your plate is going to be in the middle, and while you're diving, this is actually going to, they call it tacoing, but it will actually taco around your doubles. Ideally, this particular wing was designed for steel 94s made by Press Steel. They're not around anymore, and neither are 104s. I did have a set in the garage if you're interested. So, but they basically kept the wing in position. The tank, it actually sat along the edges of the tank, and it worked well. The problem was if you put it on singles, it would basically wrap all the way around. Your aluminum 80 would simply disappear on the inside. And when you came to the surface and inflated it, it would flop you face down in the water. So that's why it was designed specifically for doubles at that point. So, a double wing doesn't always work for singles. And once again, this is last remaining horseshoe wings that are out there. Oh, by the way, all the grommets are always stainless steel, so they're not going to rust easily. But it's stainless, not never stain. There's always a little bit of carbon mixed in with the stainless steel, so you do have to wash it in order to keep it clean. But if you miss a day or two, it's not going to turn into a brown rust spot on your gear. All the fittings are the same, like we discussed in the beginning. So this will wind up holding everything together. So that's in a nutshell pretty much what we've got on picking your wing. You have to decide the wing that's going to do the job for you. So when we're talking about a modular system, you need the harness that's going to hold the wing onto your body. Where are you doing your diving? So if you start with an IQ light and you're wearing a 27 or a 32 pound wing, and now 2-3 years later, it's like, yeah, I'm taking an intro to tech class. I need another wing, got more lift. I'm going to be wearing doubles. It's like, okay, same harness. The advantage on the same harness is where all the clips and rings are on your harness. Oh, by the way, there is one adage I've always been teaching with: clips on gear, rings on your body. You can't get entangled with a ring, but you can get entangled with a clip. So if you've got clips hanging on your harness, no good. Switch it over, put your clips on the gear that you're working with. And the best story I've ever heard about that was a friend of mine was diving the Andrea Doria, diving air, 240 feet. He went inside the wreck. He tried to come out and he couldn't move. What had happened was he had a bullet weight with a regular trigger snap on it, and it clipped around a piece of cable. It took him 10 minutes to get himself free. He had to cut it free. When he came up on the boat, he said, anybody dies with a clip like this, as he took his hacksaw and cut it off the bullet weight, is going to commit suicide. That's where the name, the suicide clip, came out of. See, you learned something new today. So we've evolved, we've moved forward on that. So once again, it's all about fitting what you need. That's why we go to modularity and work it for there. That's also why we try to come up with gear that can get you from one to the other. So if you're diving with an aluminum 80 or steel 80, and now it's like, I'm going to wear doubles. Well, the Deep Ocean 2.0 is going to be okay for your singles and okay for your set of doubles. If you just want something for singles, 27 to 32 pound lift. And by the way, the 27 and 32, it's just 5 pounds difference. And by the way they do the CE testing, it's actually higher, but I'm not going to get into that. So you've got a true 27 or 32, but the 27 is cut slightly longer. So ladies, if you're 5 feet 3 inches tall and you go with a 27, try it on your rig. You might find that when you sit down, you're sitting on the wing. And you may go with a 32, it's only 5 pounds more lift, but that wing cut a little bit shorter, but slightly wider, but it may fit your body shape a little bit easier. So it is all about your body shape. And that's it, because you made me work really hard on the first one. I'm done a little early, so you can ask all your questions.
No, it's good. Let's see. On the Deep Ocean 2.0, with the internal bungee system, how easy is it to go back and forth? I mean, obviously it's a convertible wing. What is the process to go from the 60 back to the 48? Is there a lot of weaving? And
it's really not that difficult. We thought about what's called a barrel lock, which we use on the rock boots that you slide them back and forth. The problem with the barrel lock, it has sharper edges. We worried about with a fully inflated wing, possibly damaging the inner bladder. So it's a knot. It's really a simple overhand knot. You don't need to tie a carrick bend. All right. It's just a simple knot. You untie the knot, you stretch, you don't have to remove the bungees, just stretch them out. And then when you're ready to put it together, just snug them up and put the knot back in. A simple overhand knot will do the job. If you're worried, use 2 knots, but there's better knots, but sometimes more is a little bit better and a little easier to teach. What we don't want is a Gordian knot where you need to cut it with a knife. So, and if you had to, it's simple bungee available anywhere that you can replace by yourself.
Another question is the inflator hose. Are they all standard? What's the length of the inflator hose, and can you change those out?
The standard length is 16 inches on the hose. The whole reasoning behind that was, and this is a bit on the DRR side, that when you're in the horizontal position in the water, a really long hose length is now extending past your body plane. Chance for entanglement, chance for grabbing onto anything in the way of marine life in terms of the coral or whatever. But, pardon me, you can use we do sell 19-inch lengths if you decide you want to make it longer. Usually the problem that we have is people have the plate, whether it happens to be an IQ Light or a stainless steel or aluminum plate, the plate is too far down. It's basically touching the top of their tushy, and now the whole harness and everything is pulled back. You need to pull it up higher in position. Diving with a harness will feel different than a stabilizing jacket. And for those of you in the beginning, when you kept hearing Thomas talk jacket, he considers a back plate and a wing a jacket. It's just his nomenclature. So the whole idea is to make sure that plate's up high enough. As the plate comes up, the hose goes down longer. But if you prefer the longer hose, Jack will sell you anything you want.
So I just thought something kind of funny. Yesterday we were talking about what the different letters with the DUI naming structure is, which is, TLS,
Right.
XM and all that
Right.
stuff. It seems that OMS products always are named after ocean and stream.
Yeah. Well, there's a second real name for OMS. One man show. How many people do you see here?
Right.
So, but it's the original, when John Griffiths in 1991 started OMS, he was looking at diving the Andrea Doria, and he was thinking in saltwater diving, which there's where your ocean connection is at that point. Okay. Stream is thinking in terms of something moving quickly but efficiently in the water. So, and I laugh about it all the time because we have the deep stream, the slip stream, the
Reef
side
stream.
stream, and we have a reel called the smart stream. So we got a stream thing going on. So if you say stream, we know it's one of 4 products we can guess at. So that's more of a Thomas question on that. That's the way they roll, and we got to roll with them.
So it's okay that we end this session a little bit earlier because you've gone now for 2 hours and you have another 2 hours of sessions to come up. So thank you, Pete, for going over OMS Wings. Again, everyone, please ask your questions. So even if it's during our break, you ask a question, we can address it when we come back, possibly when there's time during the regulator or the DUI accessories session. So please come back at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we will start with the next session. Okay,
Right.
So thanks, Pete.
See you in a little bit.
Oops.